if I just come out here, I've also got another couple of areas that I'm going to go through. I've got the application documentation. So this is a layer on top of the application of the model documentation that allows me to organize my model into applications. Here I've defined 3 different applications: a financial planning and reporting application, a KPIs application, and my QUBEdocs application, which is essentially documented by default when you acquire QUBEdocs. So if I click on my QUBEdocs application, I can see information at the top telling me what my QUBEdocs application does. I can see who the owner of the application is and the different user groups. Once again, I can see a visual. I can see I've got an application here and I've got 2 cubes which are related to it. And down here I've got details, and these details are essentially user defined. Again, this documentation is all kept within TM1. So here I've decided I want to define some views, and these views are what I use to essentially update the QUBEdocs application. So these are all just defined down here. As I go down, QUBEdocs essentially pulls out the definitions for cubes and dimensions which are relevant to the application. You just essentially map the cubes to the application, and a more focused dimension and cube matrix, which basically just allow you to explore the relationships. If I select another application, financial planning and reporting, I can see I've got a lot more cubes related to this application. I can also see that I've got an external document which is available to me, which provides additional information, that may be a PDF or a doc file, which actually tells you how you go about the planning. The documentation can be captured at that level, or the external documents can be captured here too. And we can also link through to an actual planning template or a report in here as well. So that's quite a handy feature. Here, before, when we looked at the QUBEdocs application, we had views and we documented them. Here we're documenting planning templates and reports. So you've got the ability to set that up however you please. If I just have a look at application flows now, what this does is I've got an application, it's got these cubes, and this just gives me a more focused diagram of what's available in my application. And then if I click on extended application flows, I can see that I've also got external data sources flowing into my application too. You can see that my application is anything that relates directly to my application is shown in grey. Anything that is essentially external to that is shown in white as well. I'll just go back to the home screen now. Another couple of areas I just want to touch on. The first one is the glossary. So this basically just pulls out all the definitions that you've set in TM1. And you can run down there whether it's a definition for a cube or a dimension, an element, or even an application. These are just shown in alphabetical order. And you can basically just get up to speed with what your model is all about. I guess it's probably worth just taking you through a quick demonstration of how this documentation is maintained. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flick through to Architect. I could go through to Performance Modeler or another TM1 interface. I'm just going to enter my credentials, and here I've basically arranged QUBEdocs into my application folders. So I've got this folder here called Documentation, and this actually relates to the views that are documented in my QUBEdocs application too. What I can do here is I can click on the first view, which is Update Object Definitions, and here I can see a list of my cubes and the definitions associated with them. I can see my dimensions and the definitions associated with them, and I can actually drill down to a lower level too. So on the account dimension, I can see the actual attributes, or if I want to define elements, I can look at those as well and enter a description against them. Just to show you how this all hangs together, let's say I want to change the assets to description. I might just change this to something simple, saying I'll just expand that. Oops. This is my assets cube. And now that I've updated that, the only other thing I need to do is run my QUBEdocs update process. Essentially what this does is it allows me to update my definitions cube. It may be that I've added more objects. I might have added some cubes or some dimensions, so this just brings that placeholder through so you can start adding documentation for that object. And I may want to generate my web-based documentation, so I can do that through here as well. So I'm just going to say that I want to update my definitions. I'm not going to generate that through here at the moment. I'm going to do that manually. And that just runs, and now that's done. And then if down here I've got my QUBEdocs application interface, and this basically is the tool which actually generates the web-based documentation. So I could have actually ran that through the process itself, but for the purposes of this demo I'm just going to run it manually. So when I come in here, I've basically got a directory which specifies where my configuration file for my IBM Cognos TM1 model is, and where I want the documentation to be output. So it's relatively simple. And all I have to do is click on my generate button. And essentially what that does is it goes through your underlying IBM Cognos source files, it analyzes them, and it pulls out information that's useful from a documentation perspective. Now that I've run that, I can essentially launch that documentation in the browser. And if I were to go to model documentation and cubes, or alternatively I could have drilled down this way, and looked at my assets cube, I can see that that description's been updated. So I guess the key thing is I'm maintaining those descriptions in TM1, and that's flown through. If I were to look at my TI processes or my rules, I would see I've also got a series of tags in there which allow me to document those as well, and that just flows through into the documentation. Okay, finally I just wanted to demonstrate the search feature. So this is a really handy feature. It basically allows you to search your whole TM1 model. So maybe you've written a rule somewhere and you can't locate it. Maybe you're doing some impact analysis. I might want to pull out everything related to tax, for example. I've got the ability to do that. I can just type in the word tax, and up comes my documentation. Well, actually up comes my different areas of my model, my processes and my rules, my dimensions, which basically have found the keyword tax associated with them. As you can see, a lot of data is pulled out of the assets cube, which is what I expect. I've got a description there, and I can actually drill through to look at the individual rules. And that's essentially my search. I can also search for specific commands that I might have used in my processes. Maybe I've got some data sources, I want to see everything that has a select statement in it. I can pull that information out. I can come down here. So here I'm looking at my data, PL and balance sheet from FMIS process. And what I can do is I can view that underlying query, because it's basically found that in my search. Another application of this is I might have a user who's basically writing rules and processes. I can search for their username too and see everything that they've done in the model as well. So I've got a number of rules that are written by Vicky, for example, and I may also have some processes as well. So that allows me to pull that information out very, very quickly without having to hunt around the different rules, TI process files. It also allows me to search my descriptions and return some useful results. Okay, so that's essentially my demo. If you'd like to know more about QUBEdocs, please have a look around our website. Thank you for joining me. Goodbye.